All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Heel Report, which is a part of TarHeel247.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones, joining me from the Smith Center in Chapel Hill following Carolina's 81-61 victory over Georgetown. Before we dive into this thing, I'm going to go through some stats real quick. Another big game from Caleb Wilson, 20 points, 14 boards, 6 career double-double for him, and Henry Vasar, 18 points, 15 boards, 5th career double-double for him as well, all of them coming at UNC. So we're going to talk about that duo a little bit later in this one. Don't you guys worry about that. Derrick Dixon caps off a really impressive week for him. Season high 27 minutes and 14 points for the true freshman point guard, 5 from 7 from the floor, 3 from 5 from 3. Just really impressive and efficient performance from him. And then Luka Bogovac also chipping in with 14, AJ. But contrary to what we kind of just went through right there, I know we just talked numbers right there on the offensive side predominantly, AJ. I want to start with something different. I want to start on the defensive side of North Carolina, because I feel like that's really where Carolina was able to kind of set the tone in some kind of ways, and kind of it ultimately kind of led to where the game ended up going, with it being a more comfortable victory in the second half. But I think North Carolina just took Georgetown's out of its game, AJ, for the most part. You know, you had Malik Mack, one of Georgetown's best players, not their leading scorer coming into the game, 3 for 17 from the floor, just 9 points. You look at the end of the game, Georgetown hits just 2 of its last 18 shots. UNC closes on a 35-18 run with 6 different guys hitting field goals during that span. So, man, we've talked about defense this season. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Carolina, I think, for the most part, has been a pretty good defensive team, maybe barring some stretches in certain games. And I thought Carolina, once again, really showed that tonight. And again, I don't know if it was the biggest difference in the game, but I thought it was a very, very important factor with how this thing ultimately played out.
Ed Cooley's a really good coach. Mm-hmm. Ed Cooley, the head coach at Georgetown, he was really good when he was at Fairfield. I remember covering a game at Duke when he was at Fairfield, and he was like bumping Duke's cutters a lot and stuff. And like, yeah, this guy, his team came to play, and that's kind of what they do. A little bit of a lunch pail of Northeastern stuff. He was very real with the media, with some of the questions about his team and their performance and what Carolina did. He was straight up that they took him out of stuff. If you one of the Georgetown writers said that Carolina took them completely out of all of their actions and took Mack out of his game, and he ended up he was trying to shoot himself into a game. And when you've got a guy, he's a really good player. Mack's a really good player, a smart player. If you go watch Georgetown film, and he's a fun dude to watch, you definitely will say, hey, I want to watch that guy. He's easy to spot. He's got the ball in his hands a lot. And he's sort of like the engine for Georgetown. They've got some other really good parts, but they need him going to beat teams like Carolina. They had him going when they won at Maryland. They had him going when they beat Clemson a couple of weeks ago up in D.C. Those are good teams that they beat because they're a good team. And I think what we're seeing right now, starting to take shape a little bit, is what we thought Hubert was getting when he went into the portal. Number one, he said he wanted to go out and he wanted to be a better defensive team. Defend the perimeter better, just defend better. We're seeing that certainly in the last 2 games, the way they shut down Kentucky in the second half, 13 straight misses, and then what they did today, 16 out of 18 misses with Georgetown. Carolina had a run earlier in the game where they were really stymieing what Georgetown was trying to do. And there are other things, obviously, Hubert wanted. We'll get into some of that stuff at a different time, but that was one of the things. And yeah, I'm a big Jonathan Powell guy. Jonathan Powell was the question mark last time you and I sat here at the Smith Center talking to you after the Navy game. I was kind of wondering, when's Jonathan going to find his role? Well, they went to Fort Myers, went to Lexington, and came home. I think Jonathan Powell has found his role, and a lot of it's defensively. He's a good defensive player. He's one guy in this team that will go over screens, doesn't always have to go under. He can do both and do both effectively. But I thought that the defense in general, with the way that they didn't let Mack go off, they didn't let him run his actions, and it's not just one guy, it's collectively. There were a few times when Henry rolled defensively with Mack's drive and forced him to, hit kind of runners, like step back runners, fading floaters and things like that. Just weren't very good shots. And Henry's not going to get blocks. There's no stat to gauge those, although I'm sure the staff has them. But everybody collectively took him out of what he was trying to do. And that made the task for Georgetown monumental. Legit, no pun intended, since they're 3 miles from 3 miles from the Washington Monument. But anyway,
you wouldn't know that, brother.
Well, I do, yeah,
because you're from that area. He's not just like guessing. That is probably exactly how far.
It's about 3 miles, if that. It may not even. Yeah, it's probably 3. Their campus.
Sorry to sidebar, but where is Georgia? Is that it's in the middle of DC, right?
No, it's across the bridge from Roslyn and like Arlington, okay. Roslyn. Okay. It's not directly across the bridge from the cemetery. As soon as you get into Georgetown, it's all right there. The campus, there's a bunch of shopping and bars and restaurants, and the campus is right behind that.
I've been to that area before. It's been
but it's like
to a concert
M Street. Yeah, there'll be smaller shows. I've seen some shows.
Yeah, it wasn't a big one. It wasn't a big concert. No.
Yeah, but anyway, the campus is there, and they play further away. The arena they play is further away than the Monument.
That's what I thought.
On the other side.
Okay.
Yeah, they play where the Capitals and the Wizards play.
Yeah, that's what
anyway. So they took him out of his stuff, and that took them out of their stuff. They still made some shots. They had some nice stretches. They're a good team. They got some good players, but you're not going to win a 40-minute game in Chapel Hill when you're Georgetown, when they were missing a big guy. They were missing a 7-footer who helps them a lot. And then when Malik Mack was just taken out of his game the way it was. So I think kudos to the Tar Heels. This isn't the first time we've talked about their defense.
Mm-hmm.
They did some really nice stuff against St. Bonaventure stretch, which, by the way, is 9-1, and I think has a great chance of being an at-large team in the NCAA tournament this year. So, really nice performance. See what they've done the last couple of games. They learned stuff from Michigan State, Jacob, and they've kind of grabbed these real intangibles that are not super sexy, that aren't going to get people talking at the water cooler at the bar about, man, boy, did you see that closeout on Malik Mack? People aren't going to talk like that, but basketball people will, and those are the things that stick with you. And they've accumulated some of those. Like if they're barnacles and they're there for good, that's a real positive thing, and it's why I think this team has grown a lot the last couple of weeks in this little 4-game stretch against quality competition. So the first thing of our 3 things is clearly what they did defensively. That's impressive stuff. That's good stuff. This is a better defensive team than it was a year ago, and I think they can get better.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that's a big positive because we did talk about this team expecting them to be a better defensive team. And as you mentioned, I think we saw it tonight when we not necessarily haven't seen it in every game this season, but against a good Georgetown team as well, a physical Georgetown team too. And Carolina, especially in the second half, really made it comfortable. But I mean, it feels like we talk about these guys every single game, and that's the dynamic duo of frontcourt duo, I should say, of Caleb Wilson and Henry Vasar. Once again, combined for 38 points tonight, 29 boards. They just continue to absolutely dominate. I thought it was interesting watching. It felt like Caleb Wilson had like a quiet 20, right? But it felt like Vasar had the opposite. There was a lot of times, I'd like to get your take on this. I know you're up in kind of the rafters when you're watching it from the media seats, but there was a lot of times where Vasar was very, very vocal out of frustration. Like, I don't know. I couldn't tell watching on TV if he was yelling at his players, if he was just yelling just to yell. I think it was a little bit of both at times with some of the frustration he was getting. But they just continue to impress, man. I mean, you look at their stat lines over the last 4 games, as we've talked about. You know, a guy like Henry Vasar, 3 double-doubles in the last 4. You look at Caleb Wilson, 3 double-doubles in the last 4 games. I mean, these are guys that have been setting the tone for Carolina from the jump. And we talked about him coming to the season. We expected Henry Vasar to be one of, if not Carolina's best players. We expected, based on what we'd heard and what we've seen from Caleb Wilson, to be one of, if not Carolina's best players. And these are the 2 guys down low that have just absolutely led the way all season, especially in some of these bigger games. So, I mean, man, did it look as good in person as it did on TV today? Because I thought, once again, both of them guys they're just good at basketball, aren't they, man? I think Caleb Wilson tweeted that about Henry Vasar after the game.
He did. He said Henry is good at basketball. Henry is good at basketball. This is the best big man tandem in the ACC. John Rothstein, I know the Carolina fans aren't too thrilled with him, but they'll like this tweet. He tweeted out a little while, about an hour ago, the best big man tandem in college basketball. And they're not just dump it down low and kind of go to work on the block guys. They can do that. And one of the things that I really like about this 4-game stretch is that both of them are now grittier with the ball. You know, we talk about grittiness and stuff like that. People think it's defense, it's rebounding, it's going after loose balls. You got to be gritty with the ball to play through contact. And I asked Caleb about that, and he says, yeah, he's learning how to play through contact better because some of that stuff that used to not get to the rim is starting to get to the rim now. Even if he misses, he's still getting up to the rim. For Henry, we're seeing the same thing. I actually think Henry should be a little bit more selfish.
Sometimes. Yeah, I can see what you're saying, yeah.
He only attempted, I think, 11 shots on the night, and he goes through stretches where he doesn't get shots. And I think
just 4 in the second half. Sorry to cut you off, just 4 in the second half.
Okay, but his second shot of the game came almost at the midpoint of the first half, and that was his first basket, and it was a 3. His first shot attempt came a couple minutes in. It was a missed layup. And they're not great when he's not getting shot attempts. When he starts getting shot attempts, they start picking it up big time. He could score 1,000 different ways. And I'll tell you one thing I really, really like about his game. We've seen it enough now to say this is who he is. When he is decisive and going to the rim, especially as a cutter, he's going straight to the rim. Extremely economical with his movement. Very decisive with how emphatic he's going to flush the ball. And he makes sure no layup kicking off the front of the rim and bouncing around. He's going to flush it. And he's going to play through contact. He's going to meet contact well. He's not carrying off as much now as he did earlier in the season. And he is a damn good player. He's better than we thought he was. He's better than we thought he was. And I think he's going to get better. Now, their 2-man game did not work that well tonight. They really misfired on a few. One was an oop to Caleb that he kind of missed in the second half. That Caleb had no dunks tonight, by the way, first time this year. And that's partly why it was a quiet 20. But on the other end, in the first half, Caleb way led Henry with a lob. And Henry went up the court just screaming his head off. And he wasn't angry at Caleb. It was the missed opportunity. And that's what I think, man, these guys are fuel. These guys give everybody else fuel. It's sort of like, what was that old Mia Hamm, Michael Jordan commercial? Anything you can do, I can do better.
It's Gatorade, I think.
Gatorade is a Gatorade
commercial, I think. Yeah.
And it's sort of like trying to outdo somebody. The statistics and all that stuff aside, I think these guys try to out-effort each other. Oh, yeah, Henry, you can go balls out after it like that. I'm going to match you, and I'm going to surpass you. I think that's kind of what these dudes are all about now, and it is unrelenting. And Henry is really starting to get – I told you, I think, after UK or maybe after Michigan State, that Henry's getting better playing with contact, and he's getting better every game. He's getting better being a 35-minute guy, and he's getting better getting touches all over the court and being the 5 all the time against bigs. You know, he shared a lot of that at Arizona. Didn't always have that responsibility, so it slowed his growth. Now the growth is just it's like a bullet through the sky, man. He is just exploding with his growth, and every day, I would imagine he wakes up every day eager with an appetite to get better because he can feel it. Like some of the moves he's making now, maybe he didn't make that well 6 weeks ago, but he's doing it now. And they just got through 4 games, 3 physical teams, and then 1 club on the road in Rupp Arena. I don't care how they're playing right now. It's still Kentucky. It's still a good win. They did a lot of good things in that game, and Kentucky will figure it out, and they'll be fine. And that will be a quad 1 win at the end of the year. And he was such a big part of that too. The other thing is, how many big men do you know that have spurt ability? And when I say that, go back to Michigan State. I think Henry scored 7 straight, 9 of 11 in a stretch in the second half. Michigan State couldn't stop him. And he was scoring from different spots. It wasn't just throw it into the big, he turns and scores. It was different stuff. Against Kentucky early in the second half, he had 7 straight points in the game. Tonight in the first half, once he got going late in the first half, he had 7 straight points again. And he didn't do it by forcing it. He didn't do it by, I'm going to get mine. I mean, everything he does is connected to the other 4 on the floor because he's a very willing passer. He's a guy that will get the ball in the entry and understands, you can kick it out and they're going to repost to get it right back to you. That's something Caleb is starting to learn. And I thought one of the things the 2 of them did very well tonight against a very well-coached team, against a good defensive team, is they both handled double teams well. And they're getting doubled every time. Caleb has never been doubled like this before. And I asked him a little bit about it after the game, and he said that, he's learning to not force stuff. And I said, well, were you forcing it before a little bit? And he said, no, he didn't really want to go there, but he was. We all were. We all saw it. He's a freshman. He was forcing it as a freshman. He didn't force it as much tonight. Henry really didn't force it at all. Some stuff got challenged. That doesn't mean it was forced. But for Henry to be as consistent as he now is, and I think getting better by the game, and for Caleb sort of having like a reset in his game, because we know where it was 5 weeks ago, but he kind of stopped. He's being defended different ways. He's now being scouted, and he's the number one guy on the scout sheet and all that kind of stuff at this level. So he's having to learn to get his production a little different than he was doing earlier. His first 4 baskets in games aren't dunks now like they were earlier. It's all coming different. And what he's done is he's kind of gone back a little bit, recalibrated some, and he's getting production without getting dunks. He's getting production without being in transition. Put 20 points up. That mid-range jumper is lethal. And even one of them, he shot one tonight. I think it was Ed Cooley said after the game, he compared him to Tracy McGrady. I'm going old school here again because, damn it, that's what I do sometimes. But he had a turnaround jump shot on the left baseline that looked just like Len Bias. I'm like, oh, I go back a long time and say, I've seen that before.
Yeah.
And that looked just like Len Bias. And there's little bits like that. Now that he's kind of playing the game the way it was played before with the 12-footers and the 8-footers and stuff, which I think is beautiful. He's going to make a crap load of money because he has the ability to put the ball in the basket from so many different places on the court. And the patience he showed tonight by not forcing it, man, Jacob, I cannot overstate the importance and the value of what they learned from the Michigan State game. My column that night was, hey, they're going to learn a ton from this. You and I talked about it after the game. Hey, guys, don't worry about this. They're going to learn a ton from it. They have. They've applied it, and you're seeing growth right before your very eyes. This was a good win tonight, and it was a good win getting those two guys to do something, by the way, as a tandem that hadn't been done since 2005 when Marvin Williams and Sean May both had it's two bigs with at least 18 points and at least 14 rebounds in the same game. Iowa State, second round, 2005, the two of them did that. And, yes, I covered the game. And that was a spectacular performance then. This was a spectacular performance now. Georgetown's probably a comparable team to that Iowa State team in 2005. True, yeah. So these dudes are doing it. They're legit. Carolina's got 2 horses that they're bringing to every race, and they're going to go. And now it's a matter of building around that. How consistent can they play around the two of them and hitting shots and everything else? And we saw in a stretch in the second half tonight when they started hitting some of those shots. I know we're going to talk about this in a second, but you looking down and you're saying, okay, this club really can hit a high level at times. And they didn't even have Seth. And just at times. And Hubert emphasized it's just 9 games. Yeah, there's so much more growing to do. So if I'm a Carolina fan, the ones that are watching right now should be really, really pleased with what you saw tonight. Really, really pleased with where the team is at this point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially going into this next 4-game stretch, which we talked about a little bit earlier this week with some just very winnable games on there coming up before ACC play starts. But yeah, just to hit on that, I want to talk about the second half. I want to tie Derrick Dixon into this too, because I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about him. I mentioned him earlier. Season high, 27 minutes and 14 points. By the way, timeout real quick. Who is pushing the squeakiest cart in America around? Is that what I'm hearing, AJ? Do you hear this?
I don't know. I follow you. Demanded that you said you would never do a podcast with me ever again if I didn't have headphones.
I did. That is pretty much what I said.
And that you would hire a hit team to get me for disobeying your order.
Yeah, that's a little bit exaggerated, but it's not far off the truth. Yeah.
They're just having a good time cleaning up. If I was cleaning up here and here, I would be having a good time too.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. There's a squeakiest cart in America been going like off and on for the last.
I don't even see a cart. It's just people.
Thank God you're great. You don't have to hear it. That's fantastic. I mean, it's not very loud, but I was just like, who is pushing this? Get him some WD-40 for the love of God. Like, do something. But yeah, sorry to get that cart was driving me insane.
Somebody left a Ziploc bag. I'm on the scores table where you check in, right near where the radio crew is. Somebody left a little Ziploc bag of goldfish.
Oh, God, I do love a goldfish. Only if it's flavor blasted, though. Don't give me the regular ones. I don't want those. I need flavor, man. Give me flavor blasted. Those could be flavor blasted, actually. It's hard to say on the word you pick.
Where I'm sitting, those could be Tyler Zeller's goldfish. I may have to ask him that.
Maybe that's not a bad snack to have.
Tyler Zeller rocking some goldfish at the game.
Eat a couple on the radio break. I mean, that's not a bad idea, to be honest with you. I kind of like that play.
I haven't had goldfish since Ellie was about 8.
They're good, man. The flavor blasted is just levels better than any of the other ones. But yeah, I'm a goldfish guy. I don't eat them very often, though.
Right, we got to get back on track.
Not too much.
We can only talk about that when we're done with the 3 things.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. We made a promise we wouldn't go 45 minutes on this, and we are plummeting towards that. So, I want to talk about a little bit of what changed in the second half, and it tied Derrick Dixon a little bit as well. But it felt like in the second half, the UNC just. Let me restart that. One of the things, if you read David Sisk's scouting report of Georgetown later this week, that he talked about was because of the way that Georgetown plays defense, that Carolina was going to get some really good looks from 3. They were going to get some open looks from 3-point land. And they got that. The problem was in North Carolina, they weren't making them in the first half. Shot just 26.7% in the first half. That completely flipped on its head in the second half, 38.5% from 3. I felt like in the second half as well, this is what I was going back to saying earlier, it felt like UNC started to go and prioritize going down low a little bit more. They settled for more 3-point shots in the first half if you look at the shot breakdowns. But then it's funny because we were talking about this off camera. You look at the stat sheet, and as I mentioned earlier, you're talking about Henry Vesar attempted just 4 shot attempts in the second half. Caleb Wilson had 7 in the second half. He had a couple more than he had in the first half, Caleb Wilson. But it wasn't like Carolina was taking a lot of shots down low, but it felt like going down low because of how they were playing, felt like Georgetown got a little bit weighed down because of Carolina's, as we talked about with Wilson and Vesar's just domination down low, for lack of a better word at times. And that led to open shots in the second half in particular. And, different than what they did in the first half, Carolina started making those. So that felt a little bit like where the game shifted and ultimately led to Carolina winning this thing by 20. But I also want to tie Derrick Dixon into this too, man, because as I mentioned, extremely it's been a really good week for Derrick Dixon in a lot of different ways. But I thought tonight, obviously, his most impressive performance, season high 27 minutes, as I mentioned, season high 14 points, efficient, 3 for 5 from 3, 5 for 7 from the floor. He just continues to impress, man, especially at that lead guard position. So I think Carolina fans, we were remiss, as I mentioned, if we didn't bring him up. But I wanted to get your take first on kind of what do you think and what did you see that changed in the second half? Because you look at the halftime box score, AJ, this was a very even game. And that kind of flipped on its head in the second half, particularly late on.
It was an even game, but you could sort of see it's like a tug of war back and forth. And you got that big mud pile in the middle, and it's going back and forth, and both sides kind of feel pretty good, but it's halftime, and you can see one group that's kind of starting to get closer to the mud puddle, and that's the way this game looked to me watching it in person. As far as the perimeter shooting goes, Carolina was 3 for the first 14. They went 6 for their last 14, and they hit a bunch in that stretch that pulled Georgetown out of the zone. Mm-hmm. So Georgetown didn't play zone the whole game. They were manning for a while, and Carolina was getting some of that stuff. And then they went into the zone, and Carolina, look, everyone's going to zone this group until they show they can hit threes. And they were in a stretch at about the midpoint, early in the second half. I tweeted out that in 3.5 games against power conference teams, and the Big East is a power conference, there's 5 power conferences in basketball, 4 in football, that Carolina was shooting around 25% from 3. And in the last 3 games up to that point, Michigan State, Kentucky, and today Carolina was at like 21% or something. Mm-hmm. Then they finally hit a few. And as you said, a lot of their open threes in the second half, the ball came out from inside. And that's what I love about this team. That's why you have those 2 dudes we just talked about that could be extremely productive, and they're very willing to get the ball and go outside for an open 3. It's not like you pitch it in there and it's a black hole and it ain't coming back out. It could come out, and they're willing to kick it out. And it's not just them. It's some of the penetration, some of the guards, and some of the others. I do think this team's going to hit threes eventually.
It feels like it, yeah.
They kind of flared it a little bit today. They're going to hit them eventually. There are too many good shooters in this club to not do so. Derek's shooting the ball well from 3, and so is Henry. Mm-hmm. So they got those 2. And obviously the more minutes Derrick gets, he's going to get threes. He's a good shooter. The kids all trust him. Jaron Stevenson told me in Rupp Arena after the game that he thinks Derrick's the best shooter on the team, best 3-point shooter on the team. So that's pretty high praise.
I think he is statistically this year, just about.
He is right now. And but their other guys are going to get going. Jonathan Powell, every time he shoots it looks good.
And they're getting good looks too, AJ. Like their offense is leading to good looks. It's not like they're just getting these like contested prayer 3-pointers. Like they're just missing good looks a lot of the times, which I think backs up what you're saying.
I don't recall a 3 today where I thought that's a bad shot. Or a lot of times last year's team would take some fairly open threes, but there were those shots where you think, you can get that later in the offense.
Yeah, it was too early, yeah.
But they get open looks, and Jonathan Powell, man, he is ready. He is in launch mode, baby.
You can see when he made that 3 today because he hadn't hit. I think that was first 3 in his last 5 going back to the Kentucky game. And he was like going like this. Like
but you want him to keep shooting.
Yeah.
Don't look at the numbers with him. He's going to hit a stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me. He's going to hit a stretch. Luka's going to hit a stretch. You were right. I was watching what you said about Luka with the 3.
It's the follow through, man.
It's like if it's a snap, that ball, he's also short when he does that.
Yes,
the ball's 100%. Short.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the way that worked out. I think they needed it to happen like that. They needed to have a stretch of threes where it made Ed Cooley change his defense.
Yeah.
Again, that's growing, that's building, that's finding different ways to do stuff. That's there. They know it's there. If they would have ended up 4 for 22, you could see some stress coming in. And then you hit a bunch against Upstate and East Tennessee, and that might be false confidence because remember, Kentucky was 25 for 57 from 3, and it's 2 games before playing Carolina, but they played 2 patsies.
Mm-hmm.
So you work it around, you're longer on the perimeter, you're not as challenged as much, so you're going to make more open threes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here, they had a nice flurry against a good defensive team. So because of that, I think that can carry a little bit. Yeah. That helps a lot moving forward.
What did you make real quickly before we talk about what this means and wrap this up? Let me preface too. We're going to do a separate podcast on him later in the week. But what did you make of a really impressive night from Derrick Dixon? I just wanted to get your take on him real quick.
Oh, by the way, and they also closed this thing out 35-18. So they applied.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier in the first. I think I mentioned that in some way, shape, or form. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of applying foot to throat. So they did that. It's just a nice characteristic that you can add when you fill up a nice bucket of all the good stuff from today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Derrick is composed, plays with his head up. Every shot, he hit a 3. I think it was a 3 over in the left corner in the second half. I'm looking over the corner right now where it was, where first thing I thought to myself was, I can see him hitting that against McNamara when he was at Gonzaga.
He would have.
Well, no, and what I'm saying is, it's like, I'm the dude on the floor. I'm taking the shot. I'm fading. I'm kind of heading out of bounds, and I'm fading, but I'm hitting it. And since I'm the best guy on the floor, I'm making the shot.
Yeah.
And I could see that. Gonzaga goes on a 12-2 run to pull away from McNamara, and Derrick Dixon hits one of those fading, going out of bounds threes like he did, and he's just the man. And that's your Washington Post Player of the Year. The reason I think it's important to bring that up and say that, because that's actually what I thought at the time. I have bizarre thoughts that roll through my head during games. I connect a lot. I had Len Bias and I had McNamara in the same game, right? Same part of the floor, actually.
Shout outs right there for the
DC exactly. Right? But that's important because that's the level of confidence he's playing with. So when he was at Gonzaga and playing McNamara and playing Carroll and playing St. John's and DeMatha and Bishop Ireton and all those teams and Paul Six, he played with an exceptionally high level of confidence in a great league. Mm-hmm. With great coaching and great scouting and all that stuff. Tonight, against the DC team, ironically, he did the same thing. So for someone a lot of people think should be starting, and you and I said the other day, we said in the podcast, or I said it with Noah maybe, or maybe you, I can't remember. I still think Hubert is and needs to start Kyan. There's a reason Kyan got the money he got. There's a reason Kyan came in with the expectations. It's very early in the season. You don't have to rush a move like that. But the last 2 games, Derrick Dixon has made one heck of a case.
Yeah.
If nothing else, to get more minutes. And he's sort of been a closer. He was the closer in Rupp, and he was on the floor during that decisive stretch tonight when the Tar Heels were able to pull away and take care of Georgetown. The level of confidence that he plays with. He's not a super athletic guy, but he's so smart. He's very cagey. all that kind of makes him quicker than his God-given athletic ability says he is. And that's a great thing. We've talked in football before, a 3-star who's playing linebacker that is dynamite and pre-snap and breaks the right way every time becomes a 4-star during the play. A 4-star who isn't good in pre-snap but doesn't break properly at the snap becomes a 3-star. So Derrick is maybe, a 7.5 level athlete. But when he's playing and he's so connected, he's so ahead, he's sort of like that pass ahead of the pass in his mind, he becomes an 8.5 or a 9 athlete. Because of that, there's that level of efficiency with what he does physically. And that stuff those are goods too, man. That bucket's getting full. We were talking Dixie cups a couple of weeks ago, right? Now we're talking buckets, and this bucket's getting full. And there's a lot of Derrick Dixon stuff that's suddenly in that bucket the last couple of games. And the key for him and the key for Carolina is when I talked to you after the game in Atlanta against Ohio State in 2 weeks, that there's a lot more Derrick Dixon stuff in that bucket. If that's the case and Kine's still struggling, then perhaps a move gets made. Or perhaps a move doesn't get made at all, and Hubert just feels the game out. Because Kine played pretty well tonight, and he was more assertive than he has been. And you look at the production the two of them gave, you get that production from that spot every night, and you get your two bigs playing like superstars. They're a tough out for anybody.
Yeah. He just got in foul trouble, Kyle Evans. I mean, I agree with you. I thought he did play pretty well.
The last 4.
Yeah, and that's
3 of the last 4 games he's been in foul trouble, Jacob. And that's
not what you want either.
Yeah, but if you're trying to hold on to a job, the last thing you want to do is give the other guy more minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I'll say this about Dixon. I tweeted this too. I was watching him in the first half, and I'm like, God, he reminds me of somebody. Not in terms of his game, because their games are completely different in a lot of ways, but in terms of like the way he runs around the court and the way he like dribbles the ball at times. He reminds me of another DC guy, Kendall Marshall, a little bit. And again, not in terms of the game, but it's like some of his mannerisms, some of the way he plays like head up wise when he's dribbling. I'm watching, I'm like, dude, he reminds me of somebody I've seen at Carolina before. And I finally put those two dots together. So again, I'm not comparing their games at all. It's just in the way in which they kind of maneuver around the court at times. Give me flashbacks.
Kendall played in that conference.
Yeah, he was what?
Marcus Ginyard played in that conference.
O'Connell, something like that.
O'Connell, yeah.
That
was our rival at BI.
I actually looked up the distance from Gonzaga. You'll be proud of me. From Gonzaga High School to that high school earlier on when I was thinking, I was like, yeah, both DC guards. I wonder how far that is. Like 35 minutes.
Kendall lived down in the Prince William area.
Yeah. I didn't know where, but the high school.
That's a pretty good hike, because especially with all that traffic there. Trust me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But those high schools not too far away at all.
Yeah,
in the same conference.
And Derrick's from Vienna, so you go Vienna to Gonzaga High School on a regular Monday through Friday in that area. That's a nightmare.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about DC traffic's the absolute worst. But real quickly, we're going to do a separate podcast kind of recapping these last 4 games for North Carolina and just, against the NCAA tournament competition, talk about how they did a little bit. But in terms of what this means, another impressive win caps off a really good week for North Carolina. You got essentially a week off before you play South Carolina upstate next weekend. Extremely winnable game for North Carolina. I mentioned it earlier, but I think Carolina fans should be, and I think you did too to an extent, but I think Carolina fans should be feeling pretty dang good about where this team is going into a very winnable 4-game stretch, albeit maybe Ohio State being kind of the outlier there, although I do think that is a game Carolina should be winning based on how they're playing right now. But I do think Carolina fans, as I said, should be feeling pretty dang good about where this team's at. I know there's still some things that are working out, like point guard and what's the bench going to do, and backup 5 spot still a question mark. But I think the positives certainly outweigh the negatives with this team by a wide margin right now.
2 weeks ago, whenever it was after the Navy game, that was more than 2 weeks ago actually, because it was 2 weeks ago tomorrow. I think I flew to Fort Myers. God,
it flies together, man. I don't even know.
Season is just,
it's crazy.
Wow. So after the Navy game, I sat in this same spot. I believe I did it with Riken or with you or whoever. And I said, look,
Riken,
when Seth comes back, this team needs to get out of this stretch a lot. So Seth is enhancing where they are, not trying to lift them up.
Mm-hmm.
And after Navy, I'm thinking, he's going to have to lift them up. But 4 games since then against teams that would get at large bids may end up getting at large bids to the NCAA tournament, they're that quality. I would say they're kind of hitting a point where Seth will enhance. Mm-hmm. Okay, so how does Seth fit in and enhance us? They've done a nice job, and I think part of part of what we saw Radford and Navy was the fact that that's who they were playing. I said at the time, it would have probably been good if they would have gone to Radford, played them on the road, or gone to Navy, played them on the road, just to get out of Chapel Hill and break the monotony and all that kind of stuff. So they got tested. They played against 4 teams that are quality. And look at how much they've grown in that span. It's forced them to, because you're going to win those games. You have to grow. You have to play well. So what does this mean today? I think it's a good win. Georgetown won at Maryland. They beat Clemson. It's a good team. They played Dayton real tough. Miami beat them by about a dozen or so, but Miami could be like that at times. And it wasn't like Georgetown was awful in that game. Georgetown's going to win a lot of games. The Big East is a little bit down. I read somewhere 2 days ago where a month into the season, like the new projections that someone was doing with the Big East, they said that Georgetown's the 3rd best team in that league, maybe the 2nd best team in that league. Obviously, UConn being the best, and then you got St. John's. So that would be interesting if someone thinks they're better than St. John's, but they could very well be the 3rd best team in that league, and which would get them in the NCAA tournament. So good win, good growth. Picked up wins over St. Bonaventure, at Kentucky, home against Georgetown. They've already got the Kansas win. I think that they go into final exam week, right, which is what they're heading into right now, with a lot of stuff in the back pocket that they haven't had in recent years.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And they have a chance to add to it. And then December 30th, 23 days from today, it's ACC play from that point on. So I think that they are trending in the right direction in a lot of ways. And I go back to Michigan State. People are going to look back at that game in a couple of months and say, man, that's exactly what this group needed. Because they got they squeezed so much from that loss.
Yeah, they learned a lot from it. Yeah. And that's what good teams do, man. You lose a game early in the season, it's not the end of the world, especially against a good team like Michigan State, and you learn from it and you take those lessons into the rest of them. And I think most importantly, AJ, it's just another step closer to me and you not having to talk about the net in January or December.
If we do, it's going to be with respect to seeding, because guess what?
Yes.
Greenville, South Carolina is an opening weekend site.
Ooh, well, okay, AJ.
And the four regionals, the East is DC. I wouldn't mind going back there.
Not a bad place for AJ to go back to.
And then you've got Houston, San Jose, and Chicago.
So there's a very easy one right there. You want that DC one?
Yeah, I want DC, of course.
I think Carolina would want that one too, based on some of the other proximities that you just listed.
Remember where the 2017 run started in Greenville.
That's a good point. Yeah, man. Greenville's been if you're in Greenville, if you're Duke or Carolina and you're start off in Greenville, you've had a pretty good year. Feels like that's kind of the trend.
Duke got beat by South Carolina there.
If you're in Greenville to start the tournament, and you're a North Carolina team, you've had a pretty damn good year. I think
Carolina, they had Patsy or something they opened with in that same day.
Yeah.
South Carolina.
I remember that.
The building was shaking. I was in the press room, and you knew when South Carolina scored because the building was shaking.
Yeah, they were loving it. Yeah, I mean, that's a home game basically for them. But, yeah, man, I think it's a good place to wrap this up. I wanted to cut this off for 40 minutes, and we actually have – it's only 38 right now. So that is good, AJ. That's well done from us. I think we originally said like 30 off camera, but we knew damn well we weren't going to do 30. So we found a way. All right, we're going to do another podcast too, as I mentioned earlier. So that'll come out on Monday, I think, probably Monday afternoon. We'll give this some time to breathe, and we'll put another one out on Monday afternoon. So we're going to go record that one right now. But get involved in the comments, guys. You always know what to do. I say it every podcast. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell too. Head on over to TarHeal247.com for all your post-game coverage from tonight's win. And yeah, I've been Jake. He's been AJ. See y'all next time. Thanks.